Hey, Flo here. Gonna do some more Bible reading today. Hey, Elamine. So took yesterday off, not really intentionally. I kind of wanted to do a stream, but I just got caught up in some other stuff. So yeah, I've had a lot on my mind lately. But maybe I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the stream if I remember. But let's just go into the reading today. I'm not technically behind because I have 2 days that I don't read each week, and they're kind of fall on different days each time. My general goal, as I've said before, is to do it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then have Friday and Saturday off. But I just start early in the week, and if I miss a day, then I can make it up pretty easy. So I'm going to say a quick prayer, then I'll get into the reading. Dear Father, thank you for giving us life, and sometimes, at least me personally, I don't think of life as the greatest thing ever unless I think of you, because you are the way, the truth, and the life. So in that sense, life is the greatest thing of all, but sometimes life is difficult. Actually, often it is. And so I sometimes despair of it. But you are life, you are our life, and our life comes from you. I pray that you would help us realize that and live that way. Help us to be thankful and give us the fruit of your Spirit to make it through and to glorify you. Pray that you bless this reading, make it clear to me when I'm reading and anyone else that might drop by. Thank you that we are able to do this freely still, and just pray that you would be known everywhere and by everyone, that you're willing to make yourself known to, but increase that number if you're willing. Thank you for all these things. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so today we are on day 4 of week 4. We're going to read Genesis chapter 22 to 24 and Luke chapter 6. Just want to confirm that. I don't see Luke chapter 5. I was looking up through the previous. Oh, there it is. Okay. Just want to make sure we didn't skip a chapter or something. All right. So, get my Bible app open here. So, Genesis chapter 22. It happened after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, he said, Here I am. He said, Now take your son, your only son, whom you love, even Isaac, and go into the land of Moriah. Offer him there for a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will tell you of. Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. He split the wood for the burnt offering and rose up, and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place far off. Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go yonder. We will worship and come back to you. Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. He took in his hand the fire and the knife. They both went together. Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father? He said, "Here I am, my son." He said, "Here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." So they both went together. They came to the place which God had told him of. Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order, bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on the wood. Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. The angel of Yahweh called to him out of the sky and said, "Abraham, Abraham." He said, "Here I am." He said, "Don't lay your hand on the boy, neither do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and saw that behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called the name of that place, "Yahweh will provide." As it is said to this day, on Yahweh's mountain it will be provided. The angel of Yahweh called to Abraham a second time out of the sky and said, "I have sworn by myself, says Yahweh, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I will bless you greatly, and I will multiply your seed greatly, like the stars of the heavens, and like the sand which is on the seashore. Your seed will possess the gate of his enemies. In your seed will all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice." So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. Abraham lived at Beersheba. It happened after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, "Behold, Milcah, she also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Teba, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. All right. Yeah, I don't understand all of the symbology and stuff, but it's very obvious that this story is a parallel of God and his son, Jesus. As we know later, God will give us his only son to die in our place. But there's probably so much deep meaning in the parallel that I can't really break it down or anything, but it always reminds me of what God did with his son. But there's another verse somewhere, I think it's maybe in Hebrews, but I don't remember where it is. Let me see if I can find it. Boom, boom, boom. Hebrews 11, I think. Let's look that up real quick. So Hebrews 11, starting in verse 8. By faith Abraham, when he was called, obeyed to go out to the place which he was to receive for an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he went. By faith he lived as an alien in the land of promise, as in a land not his own, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for the city which has the foundations, whose builder and maker is God. By faith even Sarah herself received power to conceive, and she bore a child when she was past age, since she counted him faithful who had promised. Therefore, as many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore, were fathered by one man, and him as good as dead. And then later in verse 17 it says, by faith Abraham, being tested, offered up Isaac. Yes, he who had gladly received the promises was offering up his one and only son, even he to whom it was said, in Isaac will your seed be called, concluding that God is able to raise up even from the dead. Figuratively speaking, he also did receive him back from the dead. So yeah, it reveals, like the story itself in Genesis doesn't reveal that, but you could sort of come to that conclusion because when he was going up to the mountain, he already knew that God told him to sacrifice his son Isaac. But the other thing that he also knew specifically is that God said his offspring will be multiplied through Isaac specifically. I mean, you gotta be thinking, what are the possibilities here? Maybe I have to kill Isaac, but God will give me another son that's also named Isaac. That's one possibility he could be thinking. Another one is, like it says in Hebrews, it kind of reveals what he was thinking. He thought maybe he would have to truly sacrifice his son, but God is able even to bring Isaac back from the dead. So he definitely had faith. Like, he probably didn't know exactly what was going to happen, and he wasn't so relaxed with it that, he thought, oh, God will intervene. He didn't know that was going to happen. So he really thought that he might have to lose his son. But he trusted God's word, because God doesn't contradict himself. That's another attribute of God. He can't lie. He can't contradict himself. Sometimes it seems like from our perspective, it seems like God contradicts himself occasionally, or just we don't have all the information or the understanding. But to know him or to believe in him, like to have faith, you believe in spite of appearances. You trust him at his word, basically. Like if he says something, faith requires that you believe it. But also faith, I don't really know the full definition of faith or what is required for faith, but in my opinion, faith requires some form of testing or lack of knowledge. Because if you have all the information, it doesn't really require faith. There has to be something that's unseen or unknown, some kind of test of your mind or your senses in order for faith to actually make any sense. To believe in something that you see isn't really faith. It has to be something that you don't understand, or something that's beyond what you understand or beyond what you can see, something of that nature. And so Abraham knew what God said. He didn't know why God was doing this, probably why God was telling him to go on this mountain and sacrifice his son Isaac. But he knew that God's promise would overcome whatever's going on here. And so he believed, which is pretty cool. The thing that's weird, so as an example of sometimes it seems like God is contradicting himself, it doesn't really talk about this a lot yet, because we just started in Genesis, but later in the Old Testament, it will say quite a bit about how God detests child sacrifice. He says it's something that wouldn't even enter his mind, I think, if I remember right. So for God to tell Abraham to sacrifice his son sounds like a horrible contradiction. Like God telling Abraham to do something very evil. That's what it sounds like. So from appearances, you could come to the conclusion like this is messed up, like, and then you wouldn't believe or you would fall away or not trust God. But yeah, there's always a deeper story going on. And in this case, I believe personally that this happened in order to give us an image of God and his son, Jesus Christ, in the future. Otherwise, I don't think God would just arbitrarily test Abraham in this way for no apparent reason. But I think we have this image, this parallel for that reason. Among other things, I'm sure there's numerous reasons that we can't fully understand, but anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. Let's go on to Genesis chapter 23. Sarah lived 127 years. This was the length of Sarah's life. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, the same as Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Abraham rose up from before his dead and spoke to the children of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a foreigner living with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The children of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord, you are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the best of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb. Bury your dead. Thanks for the follows on YouNow, by the way. Abraham rose up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. He talked with them, saying, If it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is in the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me among you for a possession of a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting in the middle of the children of Heth. Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the children of Heth, even of all who went in at the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the presence of the children of my people I give it to you. Bury your dead. Abraham bowed himself before the people of the land. He spoke to Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if you will, please hear me. I will give you the price of the field. Take it from me, and I will bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, My lord, listen to me. What is a piece of land worth? 400 shekels of silver between me and you. Therefore bury your dead. Abraham listened to Ephron. Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver which he had named in the audience of the children of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, according to the current merchant standard. So the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre the field, the cave which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, that were in all of its borders, were deeded to Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of his city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that is in it were deeded to Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the children of Heth. David on YouNow says, Jesus Christ loved you. Well, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. It's always good to hear, and the same is true for you. All right, so let's go on to Genesis chapter 24. Abraham was old and well stricken in age. Yahweh had blessed Abraham in all things. Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his house, who ruled over all that he had, "Please put your hand under my thigh. I will make you swear by Yahweh, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son of the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live. But you shall go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac." The servant said to him, "What if the woman isn't willing to follow me to this land? Must I bring your son again to the land you came from?" Abraham said to him, "Beware that you don't bring my son there again. Yahweh, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, 'I will give this land to your seed,' or offspring. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. If the woman isn't willing to follow you, then you shall be clear from this my oath. Only you shall not bring my son there again." The servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. The servant took 10 camels of his master's camels and departed, having a variety of good things of his master's with him. He arose and went to Mesopotamia to the city of Nahor. He made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time that women go out to draw water. He said, "Yahweh, the God of my master Abraham, please give me success this day, and show kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water. The daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let it happen that the young lady to whom I will say, 'Please let down your pitcher that I may drink,' and she will say, 'Drink, and I will also give your camels a drink,' let her be the one you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master." It happened before he had finished speaking that, behold, Rebekah came out, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, with her pitcher on her shoulder. The young lady was very beautiful to look at, a virgin, neither had any man known her. She went down to the spring, filled her pitcher, and came up. The servant ran to meet her and said, "Please give me a drink, a little water from your pitcher." She said, "Drink, my lord." She hurried and let down her pitcher on her hand and gave him a drink. When she had done giving him drink, she said, "I will also draw for your camels until they have done drinking." She hurried and emptied her pitcher into the trough and ran again to the well to draw, and drew for all his camels. The man looked steadfastly at her, remaining silent, to know whether Yahweh had made his journey prosperous or not. It happened as the camels had done drinking that the man took a golden ring of 1/2 shekel in weight, and 2 bracelets for her hands of 10 shekels weight of gold, and said, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to lodge in?" She said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." She said moreover to him, "We have both straw and provender enough, and room to lodge in." The man bowed his head and worshipped Yahweh. He said, "Blessed be Yahweh, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth toward my master. As for me, Yahweh has led me in the way to the house of my servant's relatives." The young lady ran and told her mother's house about these words. Rebekah had a brother, and his name was Laban. Laban ran out to the man to the spring. It happened when he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's hand, and when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, "This is what the man said to me," that he came to the man. Behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, "Come in, you blessed of Yahweh. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and room for the camels." The man came into the house, and he unloaded the camels. He gave straw and provender for the camels, and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Food was set before him to eat, but he said, "I will not eat until I have told my message." He said, "Speak on." He said, "I am Abraham's servant. Yahweh has blessed my master greatly. He has become great. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male servants and female servants, and camels and donkeys. Sarah, my sister's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old. He has given all that he has to him. My master made me swear, saying, 'You shall not take a wife for my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I live. But you shall go to my father's house and to my relatives and take a wife for my son.' I asked my master, 'What if the woman will not follow me?' He said to me, 'Yahweh, before whom I walk, will send his angel with you and prosper your way. You shall take a wife for my son of my relatives and of my father's house. Then you will be clear from my oath when you come to my relatives. If they don't give her to you, you shall be clear from my oath.' I came this day to the spring and said, 'Yahweh, the God of my master Abraham, if now you do prosper my way which I go, behold, I am standing by this spring of water. Let it happen that the maiden who comes out to draw, to whom I will say, "Please give me a little water from your pitcher to drink," and she will tell me, "Drink, and I will also draw for your camels," let her be the woman whom Yahweh has appointed for my master's son." Before I had finished speaking in my heart, behold, Rebekah came out with her pitcher on her shoulder. She went down to the spring and drew. I said to her, "Please let me drink." She hurried and let down her pitcher from her shoulder and said, "Drink, and I will also give your camels a drink." So I drank, and she also gave the camels a drink. I asked her and said, "Whose daughter are you?" She said, "The daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him." I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her hands. I bowed my head and worshipped Yahweh and blessed Yahweh, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me in the right way to take my master's brother's daughter for his son. Now, if you will deal kindly and truly with my master, tell me. If not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand, or to the left. Excuse me. Then Laban and Bethuel answered, "The thing proceeds from Yahweh. We can't speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be your master's son's wife, as Yahweh has spoken." It happened that when Abraham's servant heard their words, he bowed himself to the earth to Yahweh. The servant brought out jewels of silver and jewels of gold and clothing and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave precious things to her brother and her mother. They ate and drank, he and the men who were with him, and stayed all night. They rose up in the morning, and he said, "Send me away to my master." Her brother and her mother said, "Let the young lady stay with us a few days, at least 10. After that she will go." He said to them, "Don't hinder me, since Yahweh has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master." They said, "We will call the young lady and ask her." They called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" She said, "I will go." They sent away Rebekah their sister with her nurse, Abraham's servant, and his men. They blessed Rebekah and said to her, "Our sister, may you be the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and let your seed possess the gate of those who hate them." Rebekah arose with her ladies. They rode on the camels and followed the man. The servant took Rebekah and went his way. Isaac came from the way of Beer Lahai Roi, for he lived in the land of the south. Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the evening. He lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel. She said to the servant, "Who is the man who is walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." She took her veil and covered herself. The servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. He loved her. Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. All right. It's a long, long story. So I'm reading from the WEB version, which is World English Bible, because of the copyright issues, so I don't have to deal with worrying about copyright, reading the entire Bible on my live streams and stuff. And one of the reasons I chose it is because I was hoping it was easy to read, which it mostly is, but it still has some of the old language in it that's not really necessary because English has changed a lot since, for example, the King James was written. So I didn't choose King James mainly because it's not easy to read. It has a lot of old words that we don't use anymore that have modern equivalents. But this one actually has a few of those weird words in it too, like just words that I've never heard. I don't think there was really just one today, and it was that I don't know what, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Provender or provender. I have no idea. I'm gonna have to look that up because I've never heard that. It could be just a specific thing related to livestock. It seems to be just a kind of food, like feed. Like you could say it's feed, animal feed or something. I'm sure there's a better word for that. It looks like another word is fodder, which I'm more familiar with that. Like if I heard that in a sentence, I would know what it's talking about. I generally understood it from context just because, it's talking about feeding the animals, but it's just a weird word. I don't think that's in the other versions that I've read. I'm actually curious though. Let's see. Let's look in ESV what they use there. Yeah, fodder. It's a slightly more modern term, but it's kind of a term that most people don't use. I guess if you worked on a farm, maybe you would know. So the King James uses that same provender. I mostly have free versions on this Bible app because you have to pay for like all the copywritten versions, which is annoying. ESV is the only one that's quite often free on these Bible apps, which is amazingly generous for the publisher to give the text out to. It's on like a ton of websites and Bible apps for free, which is awesome. The only reason I'm not using ESV is because it's protected by copyright and there's strict guidelines on how much of it you can speak in one context. You can't speak a certain number of verses without breaking the copyright agreement, and it can't be a certain percentage of what you say in total and things like that. I just didn't want to have to deal with that, so that's why I went with the WEB, which I don't think it's bad. It's not a bad translation at all. It's barely any different at all. There's just a few words that are like slightly different than I remember, but it's very familiar. It's not one of the other things that's a little different is it uses the English transliteration of God's name, which I don't really have a strong feeling about. Like I'm okay with saying Lord God, which is usually what it says, like capital Lord in most versions. And if it says Yahweh God, then it's usually Lord God. But I guess Yahweh is a little bit more accurate, but it's still unknown because it's actually not exactly like that in Hebrew. But anyway, it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Let's see. I don't really have a whole bunch of stuff to say about this passage. It's a fun story to read again, though. So, yeah. And let's see, the other chapter that we have for today is Luke chapter 6. So let's read that. Make sure my overlay is still working here. Yep. Okay, Luke chapter 6. Now it happened on the second Sabbath after the first that he was going through the grain fields. His disciples plucked the heads of grain and ate, rubbing them in their hands. But some of the Pharisees said to them, "Why do you do that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath day?" Jesus answering them said, "Haven't you read what David did when he was hungry, he and those who were with him? How he entered into the house of God and took and ate the showbread and gave also to those who were with him, which is not lawful to eat except for the priests alone. He said to them, the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." It also happened on another Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and taught. There was a man there, and his right hand was withered. The scribes and Pharisees watched him to see whether he would heal on the Sabbath, that they might find an accusation against him. But he knew their thoughts, and he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Rise up and stand in the middle." He arose and stood. Then Jesus said to them, "I will ask you something. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save a life or to kill?" He looked around at them all and said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He did, and his hand was restored as sound as the other. But they were filled with rage and talked with one another about what they might do to Jesus. It happened in these days that he went out to the mountain to pray, and he continued all night in prayer to God. When it was day, he called to his disciples, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he also named Peter, Andrew his brother, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, the son of Alphaeus, Simon, who is called the Zealot, Judas, the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who also became a traitor. He came down with them and stood on a level place with a crowd of his disciples and a great number of the people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the sea coast of Tyre and Sidon, who came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases, as well as those who were troubled by unclean spirits, and they were being healed. All the multitude sought to touch him, for power came out from him and healed them all. He lifted up his eyes to his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when men shall hate you, and when they shall exclude and mock you, and throw out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven, for their fathers did the same thing to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you, you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe when men speak well of you, for their fathers did the same thing to the false prophets. But I tell you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. To him who strikes you on the cheek, offer also the other, and from him who takes away your cloak, don't withhold your coat also. Give to everyone who asks you, and don't ask him who takes away your goods to give them back again. As you would like people to do to you, do exactly so to them. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? for even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive back as much. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing back, and your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he is kind toward the unfaithful and evil. Therefore be merciful, even as your Father is also merciful. Don't judge, and you won't be judged. Don't condemn, and you won't be condemned. Set free, and you will be set free. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be given to you. For with the same measure you measure, it will be measured back to you. He spoke a parable to them. Can the blind guide the blind? Won't they both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone, when he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. Why do you see the speck of chaff that is in your brother's eye, but don't consider the beam that is in your own eye? Or how can you tell your brother, "Brother, let me remove the speck of chaff that is in your eye," when you yourself don't see the beam that is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First remove the beam from your own eye, and then you can see clearly to remove the speck of chaff that is in your brother's eye. For there is no good tree that brings forth rotten fruit, nor again a rotten tree that brings forth good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For people don't gather figs from thorns, nor do they gather grapes from a bramble bush. The good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings out that which is good, and the evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings out that which is evil, for out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do the things which I say? Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, I will show you who he is like. He is like a man building a house who dug and went deep and laid a foundation on the rock. When a flood arose, the stream broke against that house and could not shake it because it was founded on the rock. But he who hears and doesn't do is like a man who built a house on the earth without a foundation, against which the stream broke, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. All right, that's Luke chapter 6. Those last couple of verses remind me of a video I just watched. I think it was, what's his name? Veritasium, I think, on YouTube. Just made a video on going to a huge warehouse in Japan where they do research on rain and its effects on erosion and stuff like that. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. I just watched that earlier today, so kind of cool. Yeah. Another word that's a little bit outdated these days is chaff. Like, I'm familiar with it just because I've read the Bible so much, but if I hadn't read the Bible, it wouldn't be a word I would think about. Like, I've never used it in everyday language. So technically what chaff is, it's the husks of corn or other seeds separated by winnowing or threshing. So like you get the seed out, but all that left over, just little pieces of plant, little tiny leaves and things. That's chaff. It's like not useful for anything. So in the case of this parable, there's a guy that has a tiny speck of that plant material in his eye, and you're trying to help them get it out of your eye, but you have a giant, basically a beam or a log. Like, it's pretty extreme. Like, it's a funny story, actually. I actually drew this when I was a young person. It's just a cartoon, just drew a person with this little speck in their eye, and this guy was running toward them. Let me help. And he had this giant, log coming out of his face. It's kind of funny, but that's literally what Jesus is saying, like a beam, like not just a bigger speck, but a giant log, beam, like imagine a 2x4 or 2x6 sticking out of your face, kind of a thing. But yeah, it's kind of, I've always struggled with this though, like nobody's perfect. Like, I don't know that it's necessarily true that you can't help other people unless you are completely perfect yourself. Because some people might read it that way, and if that was the case, we would never be able to help each other, like we'd never be qualified, because none of us is perfect. So, I'm not sure totally how strict that parable, is supposed to be followed, but definitely it's generally against hypocrisy, because a lot of people will try to help others, not necessarily because they care about them, they want to actually help, but because they like to put themselves in a position of higher authority or spiritual significance. So, because usually when you are offering help to someone, it kind of puts you in a higher position, because you have the materials or the ability to help and they're in need. So it kind of makes them, dependent on you, and you're kind of the master of the story, sort of a thing. But so I think some people will use that instead of helping out of kindness or sacrifice or love. They might, try to gain that higher position over somebody by being the one that's providing or something like that. Or also, you think that you know the answer. It's like, I'm better than you. I know more than you. I have wisdom that can, benefit you or something. But some of those people who think they're in that position are actually way more messed up than the person they're trying to help. And I think that's kind of what it's talking about. But it could be a number of different scenarios, but it's probably something like that where, just as an example, like maybe you're trying to help somebody who's struggling in their relationship, but you are the worst example, like you sleep around and aren't faithful to your spouse, and you're in no position to help that person who's struggling, or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of different scenarios it could apply to, but yeah. But a lot of Jesus's instructions are not easy. Like, they're familiar to most people that at least went to church in some part of their life, because this passage is one of the more commonly spoken. I mean, a lot of people know some of these things, like these first parts of Jesus's sermon are referred to as the Beatitudes, and like the blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God, all of that stuff. So a lot of people are familiar with those words, but when you actually read it and think about what it means and how you can do it, because that's the most important. Like, liking literature and enjoying how things sound is really, it's not worthless, but Jesus even speaks of his own words and says, don't just, enjoy my words or memorize them or anything like that. You got to do it. It says, verse 46, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do the things which I say? So it's not about memorizing his words or studying them in a literary fashion. You just do it. Do the stuff. That's the more important thing. But it's not easy at all. Like, some of the things that he says sound pretty extreme. And I don't think most of us do all the stuff. I really don't think there's hardly anybody that obeys everything that Jesus says if they're honest with themselves. But that doesn't mean you give up and don't even try. It's he gives us a lot that we can work on. Really, he's just revealing the heart of himself and his Father through these instructions. He's revealing his mercy and his love for even people that don't like him. Like, God loves people that don't believe in him. He loves people that hate him. His desire is that nobody would perish. He is out to seek the lost, and we are to do the same. Like, he's trying to pass on that passion to us as his disciples. But many of us don't do this. Many of us just go the comfortable, easy route, and don't care for people that are mean to us or hate us, or if somebody speaks badly of us, we defend ourselves and then we go and speak bad of them. It's kind of the online attitude these days, but that's not what Jesus teaches. So anyway, I think that's it for the reading. You could preach a million sermons out of these verses, but that's not really my intention. Just a few things. I'll just say a few things here and there if it comes to mind, but I'm not here to preach. So, if it happens, I'm not looking to preach. Sometimes I can't help it if something comes to mind, but so tomorrow's Saturday. It's the last day of the week, which is the last day I have to finish the reading. So I'll read tomorrow, or possibly later tonight, but probably tomorrow. We're going to read Genesis chapters 25 and 26 and Matthew chapter 5. So yeah. As far as what's going on with me, there's actually a lot going on with me, but I don't know how to get into it. But I've basically just been in a very pensive mood. Pensive meaning full of thought, and have a lot on my mind for the last few days. I've been not journaling as much as I used to, but I mentioned a stream or two ago that I wanted to start reading my journals again. I've journaled since I was a teenager. I'm not a writer. A lot of people, like, I can't remember his name that responded last stream. I'd have to look it up, but someone was in my chat. I think it was on Rumble. And he's a writer, and he publishes his works on self-publishing sites on the internet. A lot of people think that's what I do when I talk about writing, but I don't actually write fiction or nonfiction or any literature really at all. I'm not even that good of a writer, but I just record personal thoughts and sometimes events. Like, if I don't have much else to write about, like I just had an interesting weekend or did something interesting, I might record some historical things in my life. But I'm more interested in recording my thoughts and spiritual journey. But sometimes I'm just kind of dull, or my life is kind of not much going on to write about, or I'm too busy to do it. But lately I've been sort of in that mood to write again. So I wrote quite a bit yesterday and kind of want to start writing again. But I'm also scanning in all my old journals. I have a big scanner, so I'm scanning them in page by page just to have a digital copy of them. And I might actually I'm hoping to read that myself, but I might also share select journal entries on my stream or on my channel or something. I haven't decided if I'll do that or not, but possibly. I just want to make sure if I do that, my motive has sense to it. the last thing I would want is for it to come across as some kind of prideful thing or trying to make a big deal out of myself, because I would never want to do that. Actually, come to think of that, before I forget, I was gonna stream yesterday, and one of the topics that was really heavy on my mind yesterday was little Tiny Tim, which, funny enough, I just watched this movie. It's called Tiny Tim, King for a Day. I just got it from the library. It's pretty good, actually, as a documentary about the life of Tiny Tim, as he's known. But what's weird to me is that he was extremely famous, and I have never heard of him. And it's weird. I've never heard of him, as far as I know. But I was alive during the time when he was, well, I mean, I wasn't alive when he was super famous, but I was alive, while he was alive, and I should have heard of him. But I've never been one of those people that's interested in famous people or politicians or anybody of importance. I don't like back when People Magazine and what do you call them? Like the stupid magazines that they have in stores about all the rumors and stuff. Can't think of the word for that, but like the paparazzi reporters. Anyway, I never cared about that stuff at all. Like I've never been a fan of celebrities or anything. So it's not that surprising if somebody lived during my lifetime that everybody knows who that is, and I've never heard of him because I just don't care that much. But it's still kind of surprising because he was, I don't know if this is still true, but at the time, the broadcast of his wedding on the Johnny Carson show was the second most viewed broadcast of all time. And the only other one that was higher was the moon landing broadcast, which that's a pretty big deal, Like I was alive when Johnny Carson was doing the Tonight Show. I'm pretty old, so I do remember that, and I actually remember liking Johnny Carson because that was long before all the late night TV hosts or talk show hosts started talking about politics and a bunch of just stupid stuff. Now it's all toxic. I don't watch TV at all anyway, but the last thing I would ever watch is those guys. Can't stand that stuff anymore, but I don't know, back when Johnny Carson was doing that, I felt like it was funny and harmless and just generally entertaining stuff. And I remember watching that with, my parents back when I was a kid or whatever. But it's weird that happened, and I've never even heard of this guy. But the reason that he came to mind is I find a lot of similarities between him and myself. He was a guy that just didn't fit in at all with anybody else, and was very different from most everybody of his time. He was kind of one of the first weird entertainers. Like, a lot of people called him a freak, and he actually was a circus freak, literally. He started out that way, just in a circus performance thing where people just go and watch weird people just to laugh at them. But yeah, he ended up being a singer and performer, and it's just weird that I've never heard of him. But anyway, I find a lot of similarities in his personality just because he's kind of quirky and strange, and I was like that when I was a kid. I still am, I just don't show it in the same level or depth that I used to, but I'm still like that. But so yeah, and interestingly enough, Weird Al Yankovic was the narrator, or whatever you call it. It's the best word I can think of right now. He spoke a lot in the documentary. There was a lot of people who were talking, so it wasn't like he was narrating the whole time, but Weird Al is another guy that I find fascinating. I've listened to his music since I was a kid, and not like a huge fan, but me and my friends always you know, listened to his CDs and laughed at him and stuff. My other friends kind of had a lot of his songs memorized and all that, but I never really did that. But anyway, I do definitely associate or feel like I have things in common with Tiny Tim. Watching that documentary, and it's just kind of sad. Honestly, it makes me sad when people are like, the things that are unique or weird or interesting about them, they are used to tear them down and destroy them. Like that happens a lot in Hollywood and the music industry and wherever. Anybody that's put in the spotlight or made famous, it's usually not good for them. You know, most of their lives are pretty messed up. And it's just unfortunate because you could have, you know, had such a different kind of impact, but in the end, it's kind of a sad story, honestly. The movie was pretty sad, really. But it was interesting. But yeah, like people like Tiny Tim and other people like Chris Farley and what's his name? Shoot, I can't think of his name all of a sudden. Got to look it up because I just had his name in my mind a second ago. Oh yeah, Robin Williams. Like people that are super famous and successful like that, Tiny Tim and Robin Williams and Chris Farley, but they are absolutely tortured inside of themselves. And they end up, you know, not having a happy life in the end once it's revealed, you know, more information about how they lived. And that's super common for famous people to struggle with that. And I guess one of the things I was thinking about a lot last night after I finished that movie, like I said, I was pensive. I didn't write about this yet, but I might. I think it's important to not seek that kind of attention or seek fame, really, honestly. And that's something that everyone in the streaming world really should think about and consider. Like, do you really want fame? Because some people just do live streaming just for fun, or they have other purposes. I don't, like, myself is probably, I think I'm one of the prime examples, not to be like, oh, ooh, look at me, but I don't do this to gain a following or to become famous. If I did, I would have stopped a long time ago because it's not going to happen, and I don't want it to happen, actually. But I do have that tendency to want to perform or be funny or do something interesting. At least I used to. Like when I was younger, I used to like try to make people laugh, and it's kind of the class clown kind of a personality. And I don't know if that's part of why I'm streaming. But the other reasons that and actually probably the primary reasons that I live stream is I feel like it helps motivate me to do the things that I want to get done or to learn or whatever. I find it comforting or more interesting to work on a project if I'm doing it on a live stream, because somebody might drop by and lurk in the background silently or say hi. It kind of feels like hanging out with friends while you're working on a project or doing your homework if you're in school, you know. Like back when I was in high school, my high school friends and I would sometimes get together and just work on homework, or we would, you know, just hang out, but we didn't necessarily do stuff the whole time. We just kind of hung out and sat there, maybe chit chat or joke around here and there, but we didn't have to be constantly doing stuff. You know, if you have a really good friend, you don't feel the need to entertain them. You just hang out. And it kind of reminds me of that with live streaming. Just, I'm doing stuff, but I'm not so alone. I'm not so lonely because, you know, somebody's maybe watching or possibly, you know, I don't get a lot of people chatting, but I know there's people that watch my videos occasionally. So it does help to know that I'm, you know, not alone and whatever. That's kind of why I live stream. But anyway, I just think that people should be aware of the dangers of fame. And I know it sounds elementary or basic, but I think people know that, but then they do it anyway. It's like, oh yeah, I don't want to be like those crazy famous people, but then you try to become famous anyway. And I just don't think it's not healthy, but it's also most people aren't going to succeed. Like if that's your aim, is to become a full-time live streamer where you make, $50,000 a year, enough to like live off of, or, become a millionaire, like your idols, the famous streamers or something like that, then, I mean, just to be perfectly blunt and honest, 99, actually probably 999 of 1,000 of you will fail at that. Like it's very few who actually succeed enough to make money to support you and your family just by live streaming. And it's just not realistic, nor is it a healthy aspiration for most. But a few people can do it. But I think it's important to keep a good, healthy perspective on that. And it's difficult. Even I've struggled with that, even though I've never wanted to be famous or be a full-time streamer, make money or anything. And I've never asked for money or donations, all that stuff. I still, in the back of my mind, think, oh, it would prove that I have some skill or I'm important if I got more followers, or, more people were chatting, or I got donations or whatever. You can't help but think that a little bit. But I've kind of crucified that in myself on purpose, just to keep it real. I don't want to become a online personality who pretends to be somebody who he's not. And I also don't really want that kind of success, because it comes with so many problems. I don't think I want those issues in my life. Got enough mental issues going on. Don't need that to add to it. So anyway, that's just stuff I've been thinking about just because of watching that movie. But I think about that a lot anyway, just because when you live stream, you can't help but think some of those things. But yeah, and then the other side, from an audience or viewer perspective, like I think some people think like, oh, they're a live streamer. They have some skill, or they're somebody important or interesting because they can turn a camera on and use OBS Studio. But that's not true at all. Like literally anybody who's watching, you can live stream for free. You don't even have to buy anything. If you have a smartphone, and you don't even need a computer. If you have a smartphone, you can live stream. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to be rich. Don't need to be talented or interesting. Now, to succeed in live streaming, that's a different thing. To like become a famous live streamer, then you need a lot of special stuff, and I don't have any of that. I'm basically one of the random people out there that has no particular ability or skill, and I just decided to do it. And it kind of a weird story how it even started, and it's not even that interesting, so I won't tell the story. But yeah, I'm not the type of person that should be live streaming, as far as like I'm one of those guys that's going to become the next success. Nah, that'll never happen. But I do enjoy it, so I'll keep doing it. And I enjoy helping other people do it if they're really interested, but at the same time, I think it's important to warn people of some of the pitfalls of streaming and content creation. It can be addictive, and it can also be very depressing. And I don't really encourage tons of people to get into it, but if you are interested, like I am, as a hobby or a fun thing, then I enjoy helping people figure things out and whatever. But yeah, I'm no expert, and I don't intend to be important in the world of streaming or content creation. If I did plan for that, that would be depressing, because it's not going to happen. So, but yep, I enjoy it, so I'll keep doing it. for now. But for now, it's just about the Bible thing, and I may add to it again. Like, I used to do way more stuff than I'm doing now, and I'm just kind of simplified it, and that's where I'm at. And then the other thing I guess I could talk about is I've been working a lot on my hiking videos. I came up with a new format. If you want to see my posted videos on Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, and I'm also on this site called DOVR. I am posting 360 videos from my hikes, but I came up with a new format a couple days ago that I like better than the 360. So, and it's also a flat 16 by 9 format, so that's why I can post them on Rumble. Oh, and also BitChute. Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, YouTube, and DOVR. They're all on those platforms. I don't know if I'll go back and re-upload my old ones. I'll just kind of start up from where I'm making them now, but been working on those too. But I also applied for a couple jobs yesterday, and I don't know, I was very discouraged. I just keep getting discouraged because every time I try to apply for jobs and stuff, either something comes up and I don't apply, or I apply and get rejected. It's been like that for well over a year now, so it's just getting wearing on me. So I definitely need prayer for encouragement in that, and well, just something to happen. I need a job desperately, so hopefully somebody needs an employee and they accept me as an option. Anyway, I think that's about it. I don't really have much else to talk about. Already gone longer than I really intended to, but I like doing the vlog thing. That's part of what I'm intending to do. Basically, these are just Bible reading and vlogging streams, and that's about it. A lot of the time I won't have much to talk about, so it'll just be Bible reading, unless I start doing the journal reading thing. But I think if I do that, I'll do separate videos or streams for that. I'm not going to well, I shouldn't say I'm not going to, but I don't plan to put all of those together. I could do it, but I want to keep the Bible reading things sort of in a separate thing so that they can be on a playlist and you could just listen to those if you're interested. But I'm still going to add the vlogging stuff just so it's not a mechanical reading, because, live streaming is supposed to be interactive. So if I didn't care about being interactive, I would just post them as recordings on YouTube or something, but I don't really see much point in doing that. So anyway, that's about it for today. So I'm going to head out. Thanks to anybody that was lurking or dropping by. I will see you all next time.